Singaporean General Election, 2015. In today's video we'll learn about Singaporean General Election, 2015. Going through the sections. Abstract, background, timeline, election results, external links, abstract. Lee Hsien Loong Pap. The 2015 Singaporean general election was held on 11th of September to form Singapore's parliament. The previous parliament was dissolved on August 25, 2015 by President Tony Tan on the advice of Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, and candidates were nominated on 1st of September that year. The election was the first since Singapore's independence which saw all seats contested. Most of the seats were contested between two parties, with the only three cornered fights occurring in three single-member constituencies. Using first-past-the-post voting, the election was also the first after the March 2015 death of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore's 50th anniversary celebration on 9th of August that year. Out of 89 seats, the People's Action Party, PAP, contested all in 183, with the other 6 seats won by the Workers' Party of Singapore, WP. The single seat from Punggol East single-member constituency was the only seat to change hands, recaptured by PAP. Voter turnout was 93.56%, discounting overseas votes. PAP won its best results since 2001 with 69.86% of the popular vote, an increase of 9.72% from the previous election in 2011. WP scored 39.75% of votes in the 28 seats it contested, a drop of 6.83%. In the overall popular vote, WP scored 12.48% and the remaining 7 parties less than 4% each. 3 candidates failed to secure at least 12.5% of votes in their area and thus lost their electoral deposit. This project compresses information gathered from Wikipedia in video format. Why should I watch it? Studies prove that reading while listening improves comprehension, increases speed as well as expands vocabulary and enhances fluency. Provide your feedback on the comments section. Support the channel by subscribing and liking the video, thanks. Background. The maximum term of the Singaporean parliament is 5 years, within which it must be dissolved by the president and elections held within 3 months, as stated in the constitution. As like the previous elections since 1959, voting is compulsory and results are based on the first-past-the-post system. Elections are conducted by the Elections Department, which is under the jurisdiction of the Prime Minister's office. The general election was the 17th general election in Singapore and is the 12th since independence in 1965. The election coincides with the Golden Jubilee of the Republic of Singapore's founding. The governing People's Action Party, PAP, have secured their 14th consecutive term in office since 1959. This will be the PAP's 3rd election with Lee Hsien Loong as its Secretary General, and the country's first election after the passing of its founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew. Some analysts suggested that an early election was indeed possible to garner sympathy votes might well backfire. It is also the country's first election where there are no walkovers in any of the constituencies, as voting will take place in Tanjong Pagar GRC for the first time. The governing People's Action Party, PAP, has been in power since 1959 and is currently led by the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. The leading opposition party is the Workers' Party, led by Low Thia Kiang, with 7 elected seats and 2 NCMP seats. The Singapore People's Party led by Chiam See Tong has 1 NCMP seat. A total of 8 opposition parties challenged the ruling party in this election. The Electoral Boundaries Review Committee is convened before every general election to review electoral boundaries in view of population growth and shifts. The committee is appointed by the Prime Minister. The new electoral divisions were published on July 24, 2015, indicating the beginning of an election cycle. Singapore's largest newspaper, The Straits Times, created an interactive map of the boundary changes. Click here to explore the interactive timeline. The Elections Department issued the following information upon the issuance of the writ of election. Campaigning began from 1 September and ended on 9th of September to canvass votes through physical rallies and stream on various media platforms. A live debate was held on 1st of September in English and Chinese channel platforms, followed by 2-party political broadcasts airing on 3 and 10th of September. The eve of polling day, known as cooling off day, prohibits party from campaigning except for party political broadcasts. A total of 72 candidates made their political debut this election, among which the PAP team include a former second permanent secretary, a former MediaCorp television personality, a former police assistant commissioner, a founder of an organization focusing animal welfare, and a former chief of defense force. 14 MPs from the 12th Parliament stepped down this election, and one MP died during the term in office on 23 March this year, which is former Minister Mentor and first Prime Minister of Singapore Lee Kuan Yew, who served the Tanjong Pagar division for a record 60 years, the longest tenure for any elected MPs. Election results. After polls closed at 8 p.m., vote counting began. Results were announced by Ng Wei Chung, Chief Executive Director of the Energy Market Authority, who acted as the returning officer for the election. The first result was declared at 11:31 p.m. on 11th of September, where PAP candidate Lam Pin Min won the Sengkang West single-member constituency with a majority of 17,564. The last result was declared at 3:10 a.m. on 12th of September, where Workers' Party team contesting Al Junaid Group Representation constituency, led by party's Secretary-General Loh Thia Kyong, won the constituency by a narrow margin of 1.9%, or a majority of 2,612. Contrary to expectations of a tougher contest with all constituencies being contested by the opposition parties, PAP won its best-ever results since the 2001 general election, achieving a swing of 9.7% to achieve 69.9% of the vote as compared to the previous election in 2011 when it received 60.1%. The PAP unexpectedly reclaimed the constituency of Punggol East after it was lost to WP in a 2013 by-election, and achieved a swing in Al Junaid GRC large enough to force a vote recount, although the WP retained the constituency. With 6 elected seats for WP, 3 seats for the non-constituency Member of Parliament were eligible to complete a minimum of 9 opposition members. WP was qualified for all 3 seats by virtue of being the top 3 losing performers for the election. The single-member constituencies of Punggol East, later declined, and Fengshan, and 1 seat, later 2, for the East Coast Group Representation constituency, and thus WP had 9 represented seats for the upcoming parliament. The victory for the Potong Pasir single-member constituency has posted its widest swing among all other single-member constituencies for this election, with 16.05%. While the largest swing for all contested constituencies was Bishan-Toa Payoh Group Representation constituency, with 16.66%. This victory resulted in the end of a 31-year reign of Singapore People's Party, as they failed to win at least a seat in Parliament, including NCMPs, for the first time, despite Potong Pasir was SPP's best-performing constituency for the election. Consequently, this was also the first time since 1986 only one opposition party, Singapore Democratic Party, at the time, represented the parliament, and after the 1981's Angsans by-election, where WP being the only opposition party to represent the parliament alone, as none of the other 7 opposition parties, including SPP and 2 independents, won contests. A poll held by the Institute of Policy Studies among 2,000 voters noted that 79% believe the whole election system is fair to all political parties, up from 61% in 2011. Voter turnout for the election was 93.56%, with 2,304,331 votes cast. Popular vote. Seats. In an election's first, sample counts were released by the Elections Department to prevent speculation and misinformation from unofficial sources while counting is underway. All sample counts were released by 10 p.m. 2 hours after polling ended. With the exception of Al Junaid and Punggol East, where counts were within a 4% error margin, all other figures showed that PAP had comfortable leads in 26 electoral divisions, while WP led in 1 electoral division.